Not a day that goes by that I don't worry about what's going to happen to my son after I'm not around. My son Spencer is 22. He recently aged out of his high school program, and it is as if he has fallen into the abyss. He is on the registry of Unmet Needs and has been for several years. However,
there is a large group of people out there who have no clue what individuals with disabilities go through. They have no clue what the limitations are. They might have an idea of it, but the extent of it, I don't think anybody is truly aware of it unless, again, it impacts them. So I think that was one of the big points I took away from that film, and I really, truly loved it. It's bittersweet in the sense that you can see how much all of these parents absolutely adore their children, but the sheer fact is that once you age out of, I essentially feel like a system in which, with the little access to disability care that we have, it's very much catered to children. And the huge point that I took away from this is that there's not enough resources for adults, which is essentially the rest of that person's life. You are an adult from 18 up until your last days, and the fact that there's less resources for that period of time, which could be as long as 80 plus years, in contrast to the 18 years of being a child, is actually very ridiculous, and you don't really even realize that, again, unless it's someone who you know and it affects you specifically. So I think that was an amazing part to see in the film, because you really see how much these parents love their kids, but how tired they are. They just need a break. They want help. They want someone who actually can do something to give a shit. And it's really disheartening to know that even films like these have to be made just to kind of make them feel like they need to reach out to give a shit. Like it's absolutely terrible. Um, and I guess fortunately, but unfortunately, this film displays that perfectly.
What really was interesting about this was the personal point of view of the families is what makes it really touching, because it feels like it gives it a heart. You're really seeing the effects of these families. They're really speaking on their fears out loud, and sharing them with you. It talks about the ultimate sacrifice these families make, and it's a real message for wanting more people to consider the option of embarking on a career in lawn care staff, because the need for it is so great.
However, this documentary style short explains that after individuals who are impacted with disabilities age out of their high school sponsored programs, there is a lack of adequate services and affordable services for people with developmental disabilities, which leads to individuals not receiving the care that they require. It's a very scary situation for families, for parents who now have adult children. However, parents are growing old, and it's calling into question our support systems that we have in place. This short uses pathos to evoke compassion and empathy and understanding, in hopes to raise awareness in society and also in government, and hopefully lead to legislative solutions in which our society values people with developmental disabilities. Technically, I thought the cinematography of this documentary style short was wonderful. It did not distract from the important information that was being shared, but it also allowed us into the lives of many individuals with respect. I thought the use of subtitles was very inclusive and very appropriate for this style documentary. And overall, I thought it was a very important and necessary video.
I really thought that this documentary was so impactful and moving, and educational. It also really taught me a lot about the different communities and conveyed information that I didn't know before. So, for example, like I found it shockingly heartbreaking to learn about the 10 to 15-year list of people on the registry for unmet needs. 10 to 15 years is such a long amount of time. It was also very interesting to hear about the fear that people with disabilities have as their families are aging, or their caregivers are potentially becoming burnt out, and they are overwhelmingly aware of that fact, and how that impacts them to feel like a burden. In terms of technicality of this documentary, I thought that it was extremely well done. It had very crisp sound, very moving photos and imagery, and most importantly, it just really makes the viewer feel something.
I think it's important to be reminded of these kind of struggles that so many families are going through. As unnecessary as they seem, it certainly feels like we as a society should have the means to be taking care of every last one of us. It's obviously not the case. And these examples feel like extreme examples, really just highlight the deficiencies we have as a society. They these parents especially shouldn't have to be worrying what's going to happen with their children when they're gone because of their conditions. It just this film did a really great job at highlighting the needs, just really humanizing a statistic and presenting it all really well and thoroughly and in such a compelling way.
With the amount of people that need the care and the few people that are willing to be workers or that are qualified care workers, like, it's a very, very real, serious problem that lands on the family's shoulders, but people can only burden that by themselves for so long. Everybody needs help, everybody needs support, everybody, needs something, and it's just one of those eye-opening things that I don't think we realized was a casualty of the pandemic. And so I think that this film is really important because it does shed light on a very real problem. And the more it gets brought up, the more it gets acknowledged, hopefully the more either people look into those jobs as possible career options, or that, more funding is made, more changes can be made. The more awareness is out there, the more it's talked about, the more the issues and the problems are actually presented and addressed, there's higher chances of some positive change happening.